For the first year, I had to still labour on farms. I was just helping out on farms when I decided I wanted to go and coach and support farmers. I just worked on farms, labouring, driving tractors, whatever I could get my hands on while I grew this sort of credibility in the space of supporting farmers as a coach or a consultant. I like the word coach. I don't like telling farmers what to do. It was like, right, I'm gonna show the kids that I can do that. All my family were like, it was a bit like the old man when I said to him, I say the old man's my stepdad, spraying contractor. When I first said to him, I'm going to go manage this organic farm, he's like, oh, next minute you'll be wearing flax jandals and smoking cannabis.
That was Jono Frew, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey. From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
G'day, welcome back to The Regenerative Journey and welcome to Angelica's office. Actually, it might be a bit echoey. I went at Hannah. I generally do it in my office, which has got a bit of carpet and, noise, deadening sort of materials around, but Ange is not quite as decked out as for that sort of stuff. But anyway, stiff shit. I've done it before here and it's worked a treat, so we're going to push on. Jono Frew is our guest for this one. Before I bang on about that, I haven't really got a plan as to what to talk about, so I'll keep it brief. We are, by the time you hear this, we're probably halfway through our webinar series. I think maybe Cherie Gooding would be this week that you hear this, or might have been last week. That doesn't mean you can't get yourself some tickets. You could certainly buy yourself a ticket to the seat to the webinar series. It just means that you will be accessing the previous webinars on a recording, but don't despair and think, it's not going to be as good as live. And look, the truth be known, better off to be there live. However, you get the recordings of the previous webinars that you might have missed. So there's that you can play a bit of catch up on, but also it means by getting a ticket, you get to access. We worked out, I think it was close to $2,000 worth of discounted courses and materials from the webinar presenters. I know Nicole Masters alone, she has a 30% discount on a number of different online courses, which is a significant saving. It probably pushes the whole package over $2,000. So for the price of the ticket, it's almost, I think it's probably looking like what do I work it out at? 400% return on your investment, and that's just for the materials you get at a discount, not including the value of the webinar series, you being online with those extraordinary experts, and also gives you access to able to buy a ticket for the farm day on the 13th of October. I'm sure you're all sick of me banging on about that, but it's going to be awesome because we're going to do a live. Not the animal won't be live, but it'll be a breaking down one of our lambs. Darren O'Rourke, thank you, Angelica, for this lovely tea. Dan O'Rourke, who was the head butcher at Victor Churchill's in Sydney for many years. Victor Churchill's being a butcher shop we've put some lamb and beef through before, but more importantly, it's one, I think it was voted or considered the world's most amazing, beautiful, incredible butcher shops. The fit out is just incredible. So Daz was the head butcher there. He still works for Anthony and the mob there. Excuse me, Vic Meats. In a capacity, but he's going to be in a wonderful capacity doing the cooking of the lamb and probably some beef and maybe some pork on the day of our farm field day. He's going to do a demonstration breaking down a lamb. you're going to be eating that by lunchtime and doing all sorts of cool stuff. Katie Zerner's going to be there, Cherie Gooding, Stuart Andrews, so a number of our speakers in the webinar are going to be there on site doing little demos, little chit-chats. There's going to be a panel session. Helen Lewis from Land to Market is going to be there chatting with me about some of the things we've instigated on farm at Hannah to improve the value of our capital, natural capital, through different practices, biodynamics being one of them, which Hamish McKay will do a bit of a thing on there. Paul House is going to do a welcome to country, which is going to be extraordinary in itself. So there's an action-packed day. I actually don't know how we're going to fit it all in. We're going to have to come up with a plan. That's probably enough bang on from me. Biodynamics workshops. I haven't got my dates quite lined up. But go to our website, charliearnott.com.au, to see where there are biodynamic workshops on that you may be able to attend. We haven't factored one in for Hannah Minnow. In spring, it may well be in November, given we're sort of lining up and doing, getting organised for the farm field day on the 13th of October, which you need to be doing the webinar series for to get a ticket to. There's a few tickets left to that. Enough of that. Jono Frew. I hadn't met John. I had a bit to do with him on the line and here and there, but virtually. But lovely to connect physically with Jono. Where I sat. Now he's got a farm. You'll have to listen to the episode, so don't press stop or fast forward too far. He'll tell you all about it. But he's just taken up a partnership on a farm. I can't remember the name of the little town we were nearby, but it's certainly sort of south. I hope I'm right in saying southwest of Dunedin, on the South Island. Beautiful part of the world, magic. We went for a drive around up into the sort of the high country. Sat with him in the house he hadn't quite moved into. He moved in there. He's in there now, and his partner is expecting a baby very soon, so he's everything together. For that, he's a pretty busy man. He's got all sorts of cool stuff going on, and really loves his regenerative farming. Has an amazing story. Have to say, I won't spoil it. There's been a couple of big challenges that he's got through, and I no doubt, I know there've been inflection points in his career, in his life, in his personal development, personal growth, and it was just a lovely, lovely few hours I spent with him there at his new farm, talking about his life in his new home there in the South Island of New Zealand. And I trust that you enjoy this episode, this chat with Jono Frew, as much as I did recording it, here on the Regenerative Journey. Jono Frew, welcome to the Regenerative Journey, and welcome to this salmon pink Besser brick house.
Rugby club gone house. Yeah, no, thanks, mate. And I appreciate the salmon
cracked in.
It's just straight pink to me. Yeah. Welcome to the Pink Palace.
The Pink Palace. So I've turned up a little while ago because I've had a look around the farm, and you can go into more detail about where we actually are because that's more relevant. I've only just skim the surface, no doubt, of why you're here. But what does, given we're sitting here in a mainly empty room that will house your family in a short, couple of weeks?
Next week.
Yeah. It's truth. And this will become your new family home. It's sitting in an amazing part of the world. We've just had a look around not all of it, but the 2,600 hectares that you're going to be involved in, and you can sort of tell us how. But what does it mean to be looking back across the view? Is that towards where you grew up?
So that's the Waitaki River in the distance. You can see the water there.
So you could go and do a bit of a spin around for our listeners, our watchers.
Yeah.
On the tube. Here we are. See out there.
Upstairs gives you just a hold up. It's only another 3 metres, but it gives you an incredible view out there. And yeah, so I grew up. We're in the Waitaki Valley. Currently, we're in Odiike, which is just underneath Kuria, the settlement of Kuria. Right underneath our 3 hydro dams, which are above us.
The ones that drove past this morning.
There's
three
there. Yep, there's 3 there.
They're sort of like stacked otherwise.
They
They're
are,
right, 1, 2, 3.
Growing up as a kid in Duntroon, just down the valley, only not even 10 minutes down the valley. The next township, that's where I was brought up and went to school, and where my family had the spraying, contracting and sheep dipping business. We're always told of the risk of the dams bursting and what to do. There's a certain, protocol you got to follow, and the main ones get high, get it. Not in that sense of my youth, but
you mean
altitude,
vertically, right?
Go higher. So
I did think of that actually, though. Because there's a lot of community, a lot of infrastructure, farms below on either side of the river. Yeah, so that would be catastrophic.
Oh yeah. So you got Benmore, which is right at the top. It's a big lake, and then you've got below that Aviemore, and then Lake Waitaki, and the lakes are named. The dams are respectively named Waitaki, Aviemore, Benmore. Benmore being the biggest one, which is right above the township of Otamatata, which you drove through this morning.
Yeah, wow. And so they are predominantly for what like they're storaging water for what?
It's power generation.
It was specifically hydro. Yeah. Is it farming as well?
No, like
irrigation?
huge. No. It's like it powers a lot of the country. Like it's huge.
Really?
Yeah. It goes all the way to Auckland.
I didn't notice a few big power lines. There's a few within sight, isn't there?
Yeah, they're all coming from our dams. Big pylons you'll see delivering power all over the country. Most of it comes from here.
Do you have coal here?
There is coal. Yep.
Gas?
In the North Island. Do you mean coal as in like...
for power generation?
Yep, there is. And for some reason, we thought it was a good idea to stop using our own coal and instead importing coal, which I'm not sure of the logic behind that, but perhaps a conversation for another day.
We might go there. We might go there this time. I'm sure we'll dip into a few. We'll put our heads into a few rabbit holes, I'm sure. So you're as you said this morning, very familiar with this landscape because of your previous sort of activities, farming activities in and around. Given that now you're in a part of the world, you're moving here very shortly. You're sort of coming back, I guess. Especially you're 2 hours away from here. So how does that feel for you to be sort of coming back to home or a familiar kind of part, and then the role you're going to play on this farm?
Oh, it's incredible, man, because the last 5 years for me has been very all over the place. Went from being quite grounded on a farm. It was my last management role, Hutts Creek Farm, which is a 200 hectare mixed cropping sheep and beef farm, which is certified organic, and that was up in Leaston, and that was probably the last time I felt truly grounded somewhere in place, and went through a divorce and separation, and kids moved down to Oamaru here, which is just nice and close to us where we are now, but over 200 kilometres away from where I was living. So all of a sudden had to sort of work out how to live again on my own after being with that in that marriage relationship for 11 years and having 2 children. Just sort of the basics of like looking after yourself, like the cleaning, the cooking, and all that stuff.
Could you cook?
Oh, like I could, but like my bachelor years were on farms, and I was working on farms as a young fella. I would not give what I ate to my children now. It was a strong diet of deep fried foods and microwaved pizzas and things. But no, it was a really powerful experience. And then after that sort of, it was a real transformation period in my life, going from doing something that was the first of my challenges in the space. We moved up there to take on managing a company called Ellesmere Chemical Applicators, which is a agricultural spraying company. So I went from being the local chemical expert to being asked to manage this 200 hectare mixed cropping sheep and beef farm that was organic. And so that was really exciting because and scary and nerve-wracking and all that stuff, because I went from knowing how to grow crops and pastures with chemicals to having to learn to do it without it. And that accompanied with the divorce, it just left me in this position of like huge discomfort. But then I got really present to the opportunity that this learning because all my career, which before that management role at Harts Creek, I was, 11 years intensive dairy farming in the, most conventional sense of when I say the word conventional, of, extracting milk from ryegrass and fertilizers essentially. I discovered that, in learning these ways of farming without the chemicals and without the fertilizers, I had no access to any of that information while I was farming. I had no way of actually discovering that stuff. It was literally just through being asked to manage this organic farm, which I'll add in now, I was really judgmental of. I thought this farm was rough, untidy, messy. I used to have a judgment like organic people were
weeds everywhere,
hippies and, flax jandals and all that stuff. But something inside me was like, no, I've got to take this on. And it was almost like in that moment I started to question all of what I'd spent my career being proud of, like the being able to control monocultures with all sorts of combinations of chemicals, off-label mixes of chemicals, pushing the boundaries of applications and timing, to discovering that there's a whole world of life beneath our feet. And that all of a sudden had me feel, really resigned to the fact that I'd spent most of my career literally being a contract killer. Anything that was perceived to be living that wasn't the target crop we had to kill it. And I was proud of how I could do that. And when I discovered there was this sort of literally a workforce of organisms that are waiting to help us, but we're just suppressing them and killing and destroying, and obviously I had the children had moved away, I had this breakdown of a marriage, I had something that lit me up in a very dark time in my life.
How many years ago was that?
That's almost 6 years ago.
6, yeah.
And I found this old house, a big old villa that I rented after we moved out of the marital home, and I was living there on my own. And man, do things come home to, like all the thoughts, all the things. Like when you're sitting at home by yourself, I started to get quite addictive to my work again, a bit like what I was when I was spraying. You sort of have this workload, and it's like feels good to keep on top of things, and it kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but like this farming mentality that I grew up with was like only lazy people have days off. And, your contribution to your family is out there on the farm and not in the house. And all this stuff came to mind when I got offered this job, and was like, well, if there is something out there that at least gets me away from being around these toxins, because that's what I was dealing with through all of my career, I was at least going to be open to the idea. And when I started, I'm sure you're familiar with this, you start looking down that rabbit hole of soil biology, man, it grabs you by the haunches, and you're off down the rabbit hole. And I realized, like, man, as farmers, the most powerful thing that I discovered in my learning journey of discovery was actually just surrounding myself with other farmers. And so we started a discussion group around Leaston, and people started to come, and all these sort of a lot of people I hadn't even heard of were coming to these field days and telling me they've been doing this biological conservation, agriculture. Everyone's got different terms for what they do, but for some of them, 20, 25, even 30 years, but isolated for fear of judgment and ridicule. And that little field day / discussion group, we ended up calling Quorum Sense, because we'd really discovered this whole phenomenon of quorum sensing and getting to a threshold of microbial diversity in the soil, these crazy outcomes. We were seeing that with people. Like you got people together with a diverse perspective and give them the space to share. Man, crazy stuff was coming out of these events, and we weren't planning them with any great rigor. We were just sort of like, right, this farm, this day, come along, and whatever happened, happened. And we saw the phenomenon of quorum sensing take place on a human level. And 6 years later, it's still one of the most powerful places to be in if you're interested in, learning about different ways of farming is with the farmers who have done, what they're talking about, not the advisors that I spent my life listening to from straight out of Lincoln or Massey or what have you with the degree to say that they know what they're talking about. I used to attest that. It was like just doing what I was told. I'd much rather hear something from a farmer, think about how it might be or might not be practical or relevant to me, and then create my version of that.
Quorum Sense, how did that sort of, the name, it was a great name, like how did it sort of evolve?
Well, it was literally, it was me and the other two founders, Nigel Greenwood and Simon Osborne, in my office at Harts Creek Farm after too many coffees trying to put a name on this thing. And there was one of the last suggestions, it was actually Simon that came out with it. He said, we talked about quorum sensing and like I just explained how we saw it happening on a human level, and he just said the words quorum sense, and what he was referring to was like common sense.
Common sense, yeah.
And so that was it. We're just like, yes, that's the word, and that's what we ran with. And 6 years later, the organisation's a charitable trust now into its third year of working with the Ministry of Primary Industries, just to extend farmer-to-farmer learning and knowledge sharing. And, it's kind of a whole new beast now, really. And
quorum sensing, I guess, was the inspiring kind of phrase. You want to explain what that actually, that bit is? That people can put that together? Yeah, so if you think of a quorum being a group or a community, quorum sensing and quorum signalling is sort of the... if you think of it like you get a certain... I like to draw this analogy. It's sort of like you go into a New Zealand, 24-hour gas station after a big night on the town, and everyone's eating pies. I'm not sure what that is. I'm sure some of you might be able to relate, but there's a certain feel in the environment. There's certain people. There's not a whole lot of diversity, and the energy is a reflection of the diversity of people. But then on the flip side of that, you go to a food court of a mall in a city that's got, all the different foods on offer. The environment is conducive to all the different types of, or most different types of people. It's not so much my favourite place to be. But as an example, you go in there, the energy is different. You can feel the energy of all these different people all having their own little conversations in a group. And it's sort of like with quorum sensing is what happens is we, on a microbial level, we think of the diversity of microorganisms in a soil a bit like people chatting in a group. If we've got, let's say, for example, just a small handful of different organisms, there's not going to be a whole lot of back and forth chatting and firing and what have you. But if you start to lift that and you get it's no dissimilar to what happens when you diversify your gut flora and your stomach. Literally impacts your gene expression, like tells your genetic makeup to decide which genes fire and which don't. That's all reflection of your gut biome, and the soil is no different. So, and now we discover with people. So you get this community, whether it's human microbial in the soil or microbial in the gut, you get as much diversity as you can. And the outcomes are no longer like the traditional, barley plus nitrogen equals yield. It's tree plus elephant equals carbon. Like it's a whole different formula. It can't be a formula anymore. The outcomes are they're multiplied in ways you just never could imagine. There's no 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 or 1 + 3 = 12. You can't even use the same language. No, yeah, it's like you feel it, and there's like a transformation it's like human alchemy in a way, or communication alchemy. It's just like what goes in, what comes out is nothing like what went in. You can't actually take it back to its root ingredients or its root recipe or a single cause. You did right, yeah. Yeah. There you go. Communication alchemy there, mate.
I'm going to have to write that down, I think, yeah.
Oh, sure, I better trademark that. So getting back to here, so because we'll try and get back on track. I never do keep on track, by the way, to some sort of chronological order. But in terms of now and here and what we're looking at, and so you're bringing that knowledge, that experience, your learnings to a new place of work and life, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which we're looking at some of.
Yeah, so to really come back to what we were meant to go to, which was how do I feel about this place?
No, I love it. If you'd given me a straight answer, I would have just finished the interview right there.
Yeah, no, it's been 6 years of me from that moment of waking up, different ways of farming, and I've spent the last 6 years travelling around teaching farmers with my coaching and consultancy business, Natural Performance, which I will be continuing, including what I'm doing here on the ground. But to have this place as like a place we can come, we've got a baby due in September. My partner, whom I met nearly 4 years ago, 3 and a bit years ago, Ruby, we're due to be married in December. And honestly, mate, like it's so much beyond, like to say it feels like I'm coming home doesn't do it justice. Like it's, where we were living for the last 3 years on my partner's farm that she's been, not her farm, but what she's been managing, like a conventional dairy farm. It's been really tough because, she's got this job to do. The owners aren't at all interested in anything but the, high output, high input conventional model. And so for her to be, learning and rubbing off me, it left her in this position of actually saying to me, like, I actually don't want to learn the stuff yet. She was very clear about that because she didn't want to learn something that she was excited about but couldn't actually put it into practice because she didn't have the scope to do that on that farm. So to be able to come here and now the floodgates have opened and she said like she's interested in learning, and we're just on this incredible journey of learning, not just about how to farm, because what we discover is that actually the way we live our lives is very much a reflection of the way that we farm. And so now we're learning about how to raise our child in the most natural way, including birthing. We're really interested in things like and this is all new stuff for me, like homeopathics and homeopathy, and for our child, and we've done a lot of work together around this sort of mindset communication space, to be able to not only have a really powerful relationship in the house, and with our family, but also out on the farm with two very different perspectives and viewpoints, to be able to make sure that both of us have a say in what happens on the farm, and everything that we have to bring to the table is valid. We don't always have to agree, and we're really strong on that. But to come here and to actually now have the scope to actually go and have a play, like it's is it a relief? It's a huge relief. But it's also scary. Like it's because I know my tendency to get to a place like this. I've been yearning for this whole time to be back on farm, but I was really conscious of the opportunity of my ability to educate and my knowledge that I'd incurred over the years. Like I knew that needed to be shared, and so the last 5 years I do not regret spending it solely sharing that information, but I have been yearning for a place to actually apply all the stuff that I've learned after leaving Harts Creek Farm, and to come here and be offered an opportunity like this to run this farm with like-minded people, to have an opportunity to buy 10% of the place. I mean, now is the time where I put all of what I've been preaching into practice. So those that, we always hear the same old thing, but what about it? What are the banks going to think of us changing practices? Is it profitable? Does it stack up financially? Well, I'm about to go into that much debt and pay that much annual interest. And, it's now going to give me that ability to actually speak to that thing, which I couldn't relate to before. All I knew was that, farming aligned with nature works. And we see it work with those that want it to work. But as soon as you have a concern about outcomes like balancing the books, or a fear of not making it to, balance date with enough cash in the bank or what have you, Like, I don't think you're embodying the mindset, because, I'm sure we've all heard this saying, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So,
You're right, yeah.
So I'm coming into this with the mindset that, yep, we're going to be literally putting our whole salary into interest, literally, and we're going to make it work.
Well, mate, it's been a lovely tour this morning, and it looks incredibly the potential. Like you've got great pasture. You've got very varying sort of like not microclimates, like sub-regions or little areas. We're sort of heading back. What direction is that one then? What is that?
That would be southeast.
Southeast, yeah. So heading up quite high. What's your elevation here compared to up there?
Shit, we'd actually have to have a look.
Fair bit.
Are we that casual that I can just have a look?
You can do whatever you want, mate. You can fart and burp and drain the spuds.
We might not know. I've probably already been doing that.
I did.
You wondered?
I always suspected.
Yeah.
I was going. I was seeing. I think I'll go and open that window.
Yeah. No, that's just this new house smell.
Previous inhabitant
I actually don't know how to find the altitude. What do we do?
It was quite high. We went up in that machine, that buggy. It was good fun.
Yeah.
And poked up there. You know what we didn't do? Get a photo.
Topo maps. I think you're taking lots of photos.
No, you and I. That's what I meant to bloody do.
No, we'll get one.
We'll do a couple down here.
So what's this here? So altitude 430. So here we go here.
430 here.
Hang on a minute. Where are we here? So there's Demet Road. We come down here to Spring Hills Road. Here we are here. So we're down here is the bottom of the farm is 300.
Yep.
We come up to the top of the farm is up to here.
Yeah.
1,300. So that's
1,000 metres.
Yeah.
Jeez, that doesn't. I guess we're in fog, so it's hard to see. But the other day, we didn't get all the way to the top, though, did we?
No. We drove that time on the side by side. We were up at. Yeah. Oh, that's still 1,100.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Because that's interesting. Because the other day at Lake Hawea, I always stumble on that word, Hawea Station, we did that 1,000 metres, 1,200 metres, but it felt like a whole lot longer to get there. So let's get back to day one. Day one, where was little Jono Frew born?
Oh, so I was
that day, that far back.
I was born
day one
in Dunedin, 4 minutes before my sister. So we came from a womb with a view, my mum always said, and I was out 4 minutes before she was, and we're just tiny.
Yeah, healthy, tiny, like early tiny, or
early tiny. Yep, and just twins tiny.
Yeah,
but Dunedin. That's where I was born.
And healthy enough to get to this point.
Well, yeah. I mean, physically, I'm pretty healthy. In most respects, I'm pretty healthy. Yeah, I don't see that. Yeah. I don't go to a doctor. I don't, I really discovered that your mindset has a lot to do with your health. And, especially just to give you an example of how, impactful your environment is and your mindset is on your health. Like my twin sister, love her to bits, genetically we're very similar. And had a very similar upbringing. She went and moved to the city, became a hairdresser. Young student in Dunedin, flatting. Your diet's not the best. I've seen it. And in an environment, hairdressing, a lot of sort of gossip. One part of it she didn't like was a lot of gossip and kind of not so empowering chat. You can imagine. I don't spend a lot of time at a hairdresser myself, but
you probably
from what I heard was that there was plenty of that. And she developed epilepsy in her early 20s. And
wow,
as like we sort of in the family, like we sort of have a joke that my sister, because I've got quite a few sisters, but my twin sister is on first name basis with all of the doctors and nurses at Dunedin Hospital, because sadly she is just often unwell. And we are very genetically similar, but I, at 11 years old, went farming, and that's really the only difference. And
So what triggers epilepsy? Like what is it diet, environment, or lots of things? Like I guess I don't appreciate that epilepsy can be something that can appear later, or get worse. I don't know.
None of us think that, but yeah, it definitely can. So my twin sister developed epilepsy and has been on medication for some years, and like I said, in her early 20s, and I would say 100%. Like oh look, and this is just, I'm not a doctor, but diet is just huge. Like what you put in your body. Sadly, these days, a broccoli is not a broccoli and a cabbage is not a cabbage. It's just not. You think it is, you're buying it, you think, oh, this is great. Then as my years as an agronomist, I know for sure, like, we put way too many toxins on our food and no one's talking about it. And yet all these man-made, because they are man-made conditions, most of them autoimmune to do with lack of nutrition, are appearing. And instead of dealing with the root cause, of course, you got Big Pharma on the doorstep waiting for the right problem to have the solution for, and everything's in the form of a drug treatment of a symptom, not addressing the cause. So look, I don't know exactly what causes epilepsy, but another thing is my younger brother, who's same dad, different mum, also developed epilepsy in his young 20s. So yeah, interesting.
It's well, I guess it's not an experiment, but it's certainly that comparison, I guess, more than anything is interesting in itself, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And like I never go to, like the only times I've been to the doctors, I went once when I came out of the separation, before he actually made the call to divorce. I was weeks behind in my spraying. I was a spraying contractor, and the board, I had a whiteboard of jobs. It was just getting fuller and fuller, and the weather wasn't playing the game. I remember being on the floor in a crumbled heap in the house one day, just so gone mentally, like just not present, just so caught up in the workload and the guilt around not being there for my family and the guilt of not being there for the farmers, getting the spraying done on time. I literally went to the doctor with a concern for, like, I had some kind of, depression, and went in there, and there was no talk about like my lifestyle or anything. It was just like, yep, no, that's you fit the bill of being clinically depressed. Here's a prescription. Go and get this drug. And I was like, I felt like ripped off. I felt like I wasn't even given the opportunity to speak about what I was dealing with, and instead just got given this prescription. And I went over and gave it to the chemist and said, how long is this going to be? I'd never really got a prescription before. And they were like, 10 minutes. And so I went home to hang out a load of washing and didn't go. I didn't go back. Something inside me was like, no, that's not right. And so I've had a thing about doctors. Like, I'm definitely, like, doctors do an amazing service to the people. Like, I know that because I'll share at some point, I'm sure, about the accident that I had in 2020. That's where they, like, medicine is incredible. But for stuff that can be prevented with lifestyle choices, I think we need to be looking at the way we look at health differently in that respect.
So, yeah, no medication, and you just pushed on.
Back then, like, I was not a powerful person. I was very much a victim. I liked to blame everything on my ex-wife, and I used to complain about her a lot to my friends and get their agreement, and then I was justified in what I had to say about her making me do those certain things, and it was just like a pity party, man. It was like, it's no wonder the marriage ended. I didn't know how to deal with things in my life. I was carrying around all this weight of, like, being brought up in an environment where men aren't showing how they feel. They, this tough mentality of having it all figured out. We're men, especially farmers, we don't, you definitely don't cry. You definitely don't share when you're not feeling, loved, or in some extreme cases, we don't even show our love, let alone be open to receiving it. Like, there's definitely a place, like when I talk about, this whole industry created out of treating symptoms, which is by and large, the pharmaceutical industry, and to a similar extent, agriculture, that, like, I'm not anti any of that stuff, But what I'm interested in is actually what's missing, I believe, is like an understanding of what health actually looks like. And a lot of people think, and it's a bit like farm health as well, a lot of people think it's in what we put on or in what we ingest. Like, for instance, a lot of people talk about nutrients for themselves and vitamins, and, what they don't understand is most of it's just creating rather expensive urine. But if you can address the root cause, all of a sudden you don't need the treatments of the symptoms. You don't need the drugs and the fertilizers. But why I say I'm not anti is like there is a place for everything. And, like a farm that's not functioning, it would make no sense to pull out from underneath its feet the stuff that's keeping it from collapsing entirely, because it will collapse. It's like a drug addict. You pull the drugs away and the wheels fall off. It's, I'd like to get it to a point where it's not, where the farmer or the person, the individual, doesn't feel they need to get to that point of breakdown and, hey, I need the something to get me up again, like prevent them from jumping off the cliff to begin with would be pretty cool. And I guess that's what I saw was missing. And so just, went out to start sharing what I'd learnt, and through the journey, just connecting all these dots, which I didn't know were connected. And all of a sudden you realise like it's like everything is connected.
Like fungal hyphae.
Yeah.
Let's go back to early days. Born twins. We had that conversation about sort of relative health of yourself and your sister, and where did life take you? In your as a boy. Where were you? What was sort of occupying your time and your thoughts as a young man?
Real simple: boy. Motorbikes, tractors, and cows.
Because you're on farm.
Well, I was at the age of 11, so I had the family with the spraying contracting business and the sheep dipping contracting business. So I was brought up out on sheep farms dipping and out on farms spraying with the old man, but never had access to actually being on a farm. And so at the age of 11, I got offered an opportunity to go and was actually just through my mum enjoying a drop of rum with this woman who her and her partner were share milkers, and just from being there at a young age, and mum, and her name was Heather, would often go and have a few rums, and I'd go out with Bevan, Heather's husband, and just enjoyed being on the farm with them, and I made myself pretty useful, and like especially in the cow shed, and then they ended up asking if I'd like a job. So at 11 years old, I got my first job, and it was $30 a milking, and they needed me every second weekend and had me as their relief milker. But I was so just gripped by this awesome thing of farming that I just went every weekend, just was only paid for every second, and only got paid for the 4 milkings for the Saturday and the Sunday, but just worked the whole day and lived with the couple. They were sort of like my other parents. So that was what, and I was there for 7 years till I was asked to leave school. When I was asked if I wanted to leave school, apparently I was disruptive.
So the teachers or the headmaster or the principal said?
The deputy principal said they were sick of me being in detention and missing my bus home. And
Year 12? Year 11?
Year 10.
10, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, because 11, yeah.
I was underage. Like I had to, They had to apply for an exemption so that I could leave school legally. And one of the things that I needed to have, as far as boxes to tick, was extracurricular activity outside of work, which back then was called Ag ITO, which you did on the farm, but every week you went in for a classroom. Everything else was done on farm, and your boss became the registered assessor that would tick you off certain tasks. And so I did that, and I needed to be employed. And so I went to my then bosses and said, hey, would you would you take me on? And I remember being so nervous to ask them. I was such a shy boy. They said, "Oh no, we don't need someone." I remember my just heart.
And this was the people you've been doing the weekends for.
Yeah, weekends and school holidays, and they said, "No, we don't need someone full time." But they said, "Well, what we'll do is, if you want, is we'll put you in the staff house, give you a place to stay, and we'll say you're employed because you, technically are." And they gave me an extra $10 a fortnight. Like this was an opportunity for me. This wasn't like a bad thing. Like, went from earning $120 a fortnight to $130 a fortnight. So I just worked.
But you got a roof over your head.
I got a roof over my head. I got fed pretty well most of the time. And it gave me this opportunity to leave school legally. So of course I took it. And and then I didn't know, but the next day when I went back to school, my mum had already signed the document she needed to inform the school that I've registered into Ag ITO and I've got myself a full-time job. I didn't know that I was going to my last day at school. And I went in and normal day of whatever. I wasn't very good at school. It didn't resonate with me, so it ended up being that I was like a larrikin or a class clown. I played up a lot, didn't get any kind of results at school. So that day I went in, and at the end of the day went to go and leave, and the deputy principal taps me on the shoulder on my way to the bus and says, "Oh, by the way, that exemption's come through, you've been approved, you don't have to come to school tomorrow." And I never did. I never said goodbye to anyone. I didn't have that many friends, and went farming.
Wow.
And did that for 2 years.
The very next day you went yippee, skipped out of school.
Yep, grabbed my beard. I lived in a caravan as a kid at home. Big family in a small house, and literally just all it took was just emptying my caravan and moved it down the road into this room in the house. And
you didn't take the caravan?
No, didn't take the caravan.
And jobs ensued. Then from then on, you were.
Well, I was there for 2 and a bit years, and then very quickly climbed the ladder up to management before I was 20, and over the next sort of from the ages of 20 to 25, just after we had our daughter Harper, I pretty much climbed to the top of my dairy career, being in the top 5% production for the country at one point. And
big dairy?
Big dairy, yep.
How many cows?
Oh, anywhere from like the smallest would be 500 to 1,200. Yeah.
That's a lot of milk.
It's a lot of milk, yep.
Is that also a lot of inputs, a lot of urea and I don't know, what other inputs would there be?
Yeah, definitely urea. Like I used to follow my cows with 60 to 100 kgs of urea every time they left the paddock.
Which was, so how many times would one paddock get an application of that?
Oh, 7 times a year. We'd sometimes do like a spring round of ammo, or maybe chuck a bit of
MO being Molly. MO, what's MO?
No, it's a mixture of sulfate of ammonia and urea.
Right.
Yeah. And
wow.
There weren't too much. There weren't so many regulations back then. And we put all our own stuff on, so it was just a case of like we knew that grew our grass, and I didn't understand any other way, and I progressively watched the river I grew up swimming in become unswimmable
because of the nitrates,
or just the toxic algal blooms and running dry, and just were pumping out of them, and then sending it back with some extra goodies in the form of what we applied, and yeah.
It's pretty rich. I remember just very quickly 2 years ago, I did a biodynamic workshop in the Barossa. And as part of our workshop, we asked the host to collect some fresh cow manure. Generally, it comes from the farm, but in this case, it was at a vineyard, so they had to go down the road to a conventional dairy. So, wheelbarrow full of fresh, very bright green manure, and reeked ammonia. Reeked. We made our preparation out of it. We haven't been back, so I'm sure it's been used, and we just pushed on. I'd never made that preparation with such hot manure before.
Oh, yeah.
But I hadn't actually seen and smelt really fresh conventional dairy shit before.
Yeah.
It was really quite pungent.
Oh, yeah, and the green, you did right. It's just a waste. The animals can't handle all that protein, but, back then I just had no idea. It was just part of it. The concern was more about it getting on my face than, and trimming tails. Like, more symptom treating. We just...
Trimming tails?
Well, just so they don't
flick,
get all daggy and flick your
from
face.
from the sloppy...
Yeah, well, back then we were docking tails, so the cows didn't have tails.
As in how much tail? No tail. No.
No, mate, we were lucky if they had one or two vertebrae. It wasn't enough to cover the fanny of the cow.
I've never heard that before.
We used to do that. Yeah.
And that's because tails just don't need tails. They just get in the way.
Yeah, just
what
our
shitty
mechanical thinking as human beings. Just
get rid
that's
of
not welcome.
At birth, like as a calf?
Sometimes as a calf, but mostly just chuck a rubber ring on, and after a few days, what comes?
Really?
And then they brought in rules to say it had to be certain amount of vertebrae below the cow's vulva. And then now it's sort of frowned upon to see any. I don't know if it's legal or not, but it's very rare to see people actually docking tails now. They just trim them up.
Wow.
Mm.
I interviewed a fellow called Chris Eggett, dairy farmer, organic dairy farmer in Australia. Fascinating bloke, lovely bloke. And I interviewed him. I stayed the night before. We milked the cows that morning, walking around in the dark at 4:30, and he's showing me this. He's so enthusiastic. He's only got 120, 30 cows, and I milked them in a pair of pants that were a bit lighter than this, so a bit more greeny khaki, and no aprons, no gloves, pants like that, and a shirt, maybe had a jumper on, and two of us. I've never milked like that. I've never milked before really at all, and his herringbone. So easy, so beautiful, and so relaxed, and I got more dirt on my pants when the dog jumped up and put his paw on there than I did when I milked those cows. Mm. And he says, it's just, I don't use your hair anymore.
Oh, mate, yeah.
Because he used to go to battle every time he'd milk, like when they were conventional. They'd put their gloves, I think they have he had iodine, the whole thing. He said, I don't go do this in the nude, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then the cows just poke along and gets it done, and you're all chilled, and it's just incredible.
Oh, I wish I knew that back then. I was brought up in this society where they were just numbers, and like mechanical sort of. I didn't see them as beings, and we used to treat them very poorly. Like I wouldn't say like there was definitely no concerns for animal welfare or anything, but like just instead of looking at what's the energy I'm bringing into the space, which was often something like stressed, in a hurry, rushed. Not present, and so of course the cows pick up on that and act accordingly, and you get kicky ones and they wouldn't flow nicely. But now, and I've got a lot of people to thank for this, but like especially in the rotaries, when you've got to keep a constant flow of cows walking in, like you've got to be responsible for the energy of the environment, and all it takes is one person to come in stressed. Those girls will stop, and we used to just deal with that, like we'd have a top gate, which was electrified, which would drag hot chains over the cows and bring the front of them up to save pushing the whole lot from the back, or you just push the whole lot from the back.
Hot chains as in bit of power through them?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Nudge them along.
But, now, and my partner's really brilliant at this, like she will not use the backing gate at all. She can milk those cows and they all come on, and I know when she's had a rough day, if someone else has been milking that's perhaps not, as calm as what she has, and puts the cows in a bit of a funk, and it'll take her several days to get them back to being calm and flowing just from one person, one milking, changing the environment.
The dynamic, they really pick it up, don't they?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So dairy, conventional, lots of stuff going on there.
Mm.
How long were you there for? Did you go to another job
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, went to my first job after that. Went from earning $130 a fortnight, which was incredible. I saved a lot of money. I bought my first car with that, to a salary job, and went up to $24,000. And I was just like, oh my God.
Are you serious?
I am rich, you know.
Yeah, cool.
And just worked my way up. Met Taylor, who became my wife. Worked together for nearly 11 years, and it was kind of like a blur of us climbing the dairy management ladder.
With the same mob or different? Different.
A few different farms. Stayed with that crew, and so those two managers, and then the owner of that farm also worked for him on a different farm. But mostly up this valley, and did a little bit down Southland, and well, not Southland, but South Otago, Popatanoa, which is just near Clinton or Clydevale, and yeah, just climbed to the top of my career. I would have, got really good at it, but I got a bit bored. Like I had this sort of real drive to get good and to get to management, and I was working on a farm down Southland, and the bosses, same couple that were here on my very first farm, incredible couple, were on holiday in Fiji and with the neighbours. And so I was at home feeding our cows and the neighbours' cows this winter, and had one of the staff members there, Arthur. Remember Arthur? Me and Arthur went to the runoff block to shift the cows, coming around this corner in our little Suzuki Escudo, and there was a Ravensdown fertiliser salesman coming flying down the road, and boof, head on. And
you're in the buggy and he's in a truck.
Yep, he was in a Holden Captiva, and I broke my femur, smashed my kneecap into 14 bits, and but Arthur was in the back with no seatbelt on and all the fencing gear. He was sweet, not a single scratch on him.
Classic.
And so anyway, I had a broken femur and a smashed kneecap. It wasn't until 3 days after being sent home, just to say take it easy, that because the Balclutha hospital didn't have the X-ray technology, so all we knew was that my knee was, like the size of a beach ball, and that it wouldn't go straight. It sort of was stuck on an angle like that. And 3 days of moving cattle with that, waited for the boss to get home. I wasn't going to ring him and interrupt his holiday. And they got home, and I had to sit down and said, what's happened to you? And where's the Suzuki? And gave them the hard news, and that I needed to have some time off to let my leg heal. They said to me, oh shit, we actually haven't got that thing insured. And so it ended up costing me $96,000 as a 18-year-old.
It cost you?
It cost me. So the lawyers come in, and although I was clearly hard on the left-hand side, when he came around the corner, he was on his right-hand side. He was coming in wide. I had a bank on the left, like a cliff, nowhere to go. Only option to brake, of course, on the corner with the camber. When I braked, Suzuki Studios don't have ABS, so I locked up, slid with the angle of the road straight into his correction path. And so they proved me to be guilty, and I had this sort of naive mindset, like if I plead guilty, it'll be okay, it'll work out, and did, because it was looking pretty grim. So I said, right, I'll just say, right, okay, that happened. And they did. In the courts, they were very lenient and said, yep, okay, well that happened. We're not going to, they didn't charge me with anything. But I didn't know that then, of course, the insurance companies would come after me, and 3 of them did. And so I was left with that bill. And
but you weren't the owner of the vehicle.
No, but I was a driver.
So if the vehicle's not insured, then it falls upon the owner, the driver.
Yeah, 100%. There's no laws to say that, and it wasn't like something that they did that was like, I'd never judged them for it. Sometimes these things don't slip through our minds when you're busy farming. You don't always think about the little details like that. But nevertheless, that's what it cost me. So for after that, I went and that's when I came home and drove the spray truck for the old man, because I could still use the clutch just with this left leg. You can actually see with the knee that there was the front right-hand wheel of the Escudo come through the firewall and smashed my knee up against the seat. Jesus. And the foot pedals of the Suzuki went gas, brake, clutch, and so avoided my feet, my shins.
Yeah, they smashed them.
And the firewall was here. So somehow there's a few stories that we might have time to share about where you think, what the hell? But evidently I'm meant to be here. Jeez, and meant to be mobile.
Yeah, so you got around pretty well. You walked into that shop for that coffee pretty well this morning.
Oh yeah, you would
strode in there.
Yep, and I've broken plenty of bones.
So okay, catalyst for change back home, spraying, and spraying was a normal thing, as in your family was spraying.
Yep, spraying contractors. Yeah. Yep, I was good at it, and it was just a gap filler because I couldn't sit still. So while I had this big thing on my leg, it was either sit at home, do nothing, or go home and drive for the old man, and he really needed someone, so I did, and just filled that gap, and then went back farming as soon as I could. And then once I sort of got to the point of, after having our daughter, and what I would call like the height of my management career, really eager for that next step, which back then would have been contract milking. I couldn't go contract milking because at 19, after a year of trying to pay that debt and the interest associated with that amount of debt, I declared myself bankrupt after some advice. And so because I'd been bankrupt, I couldn't be the director of a company, so I couldn't take that next step. And saw this job advertised for managing this aerial and ground operation. I mentioned earlier, Ellesmere Chemicals and helicopters. Looking for a manager. I was like, that's me, and just was eager to take that next step in my career. And I just couldn't sit still. I couldn't sit there managing a farm where I was bored. I could do it in my sleep. So went up and did that, and did that for 4 years. And we had our boy Bo while I was up there. It's a funny story that I was spraying this paddock of hybrid radish. I don't know if you're familiar, like we do a lot of small seed production in New Zealand, especially in Canterbury, and it's intense chemical agronomy. It's, every week you're in there putting
something on.
A side on.
Yeah.
It's a herbicide, insecticide, or fungicide. And I was doing this paddock, and you're in a big self-propelled high clearance machine, and things don't happen quickly, especially when you've got to travel. And my then wife rings up, says I'm going into labour, and I had 5 hectares left to finish in my load, and so I said, "Yep, no, I'm coming." But I finished the 5 hectares.
Oh.
I know, and got home, and everything was all prepared, ready to go. Jump in the truck. Went to go to Christchurch, where we were due to go meet the midwife, and we got to Springston, which is a good 30 minutes short of Christchurch, and she was pushing, and so I'm on the phone to the midwife, freaking out a bit, and she said, "You don't have time to come to Christchurch. You've got to go to Lincoln, go to this address." It was like their maternity unit. It wasn't really for birthing children. It was more for post birth. But went in there, and 5 minutes, here's my son in my arms, and I was covered in organophosphate insecticide.
Ooh.
And we're doing the skin-to-skin thing, and it was just one of those moments. I still...
Did you, at the time, were you thinking about that?
No. No, I was told by my father that stuff only kills insects. Don't worry about it. So it's retrospective, you look at that, we talked in the car about having to live with what we've done. Like, I've got to live with that. My first thing my son had exposure to was an OP, laws ban.
Wow. So there was understandably, no acknowledgement or recognition of that, because that's not where your head was at the time. Life continued. Was it your son? Yes, your son. Yeah. That was the second child.
Oh, Charles.
Lovely. Is it BEAU?
Mm.
Yeah. What happened then?
Well, for 2 years or a year and a bit, we, worked hard on the marriage, and I was still contracting and not present and
busy as.
Oh, just like you wouldn't believe. Or
Were
maybe
you in hindsight? Were you busy for a reason apart from earning money and there were jobs to be done? Were you just was this a distraction? Was it a I don't know. Was it some underlying thing, or you just like I'm flat out on my bloody spray contract? I got shit to do.
Well, that was the obvious part. Was I'm a spraying contractor and I got shit to do. What wasn't so obvious was my subconscious dealing with the breakdown at home was just to be at work more, and then I was justified because it was like I'm providing for my family. This is all subconscious, and every time my then wife would say, look, I need your help at home, I'd say, well, I'm out earning the money,
I'm doing my bit.
I've got to do this. But it was all a distraction that conveniently allowed me to avoid taking responsibility for the breakdown of the marriage. And I never had the courage to say anything about it because I was too scared to lose, to put it honestly, I was too scared to be like my father, who wasn't there.
But it's interesting you weren't there.
I wasn't there, that's right.
That's the irony, yeah?
I definitely wasn't there. Yeah, 100%.
So things didn't improve?
No, I put my resignation in after 2 years after Bo was born, so I was in the 5th season at Ellesmere Chemicals, and I made the conscious choice I wanted to spend more time at home, and I was all jacked up to go and start a job as a fertiliser truck dispatch operator. So I was going to be sending trucks all around the district putting fertiliser on. And 6 days before I was about to start that job, I was just training someone up to drive the big sprayer, and we were heading to our only organic client at that time, Tim Chamberlain's, to spray some organic fennel with an organic, like a insecticide.
Having washed the tank out
So I had to wash the tank out, decontaminate. I used to hate it. And I'm there, and I was training up this fella, and he was pretty good at this stage. Like, he was pretty much on his own. I was able to bring my own vehicle and just sort of sit back and hang back and keep an eye on him. And the owner of that organic farm approached me and says, "Hey, Jono, can you talk? I've heard you're leaving." And I was like, yep, no, sure. And he said, "Look, this might be a bit weird." He said, "But he says, I want to know if you'd be interested in managing my farm." I was like, "What, this farm?" Because he had another big farm, Mount Cass Station, a big Wiltshire organic operation. And he said, "No, this farm, the home farm." And I thought to myself, what? I met this guy as being the local spraying contractor, and he said to me, like, he'd never had a manager of that farm. It's a 5th generation family farm, and he was going to...
You were the first non-family member.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I knew nothing about organics, and I said to him that, I know nothing about organics. But it was at that moment that all of those things that I say were subconscious, like how I was dealing with the marriage, how I was dealing with my resignation around the chemical use and the ever-increasing amounts of them we're having to apply. I didn't admit it at the time, but I used to always have a concern for what are we doing to the water. I used to clean my sprayer out in waterways, and we knew the waterways that didn't have a lot of car traffic, and we'd go and clean out our sprayers in those waterways. And all these things just hit me. And he said, "You don't have to answer now. Go home. I'll get a contract to you." Because I was sort of shocked, I was about to go start this other job. And the pay was like significantly less, like $40,000 less salary. And I didn't have a work vehicle, and I didn't, I'd have to find another house, and all these things weren't stacking up for it to be a yes. But something in me was like, I've got to take this. And my then wife was not happy about it, the less money thing. And so we tried to make it work with the marriage while I took on this new job. And yep, I was home more. But actually that drove home even more so the fact that it just wasn't working. wasn't a bad relationship. It just wasn't working. There wasn't that spark like what, we all think is like some kind of far-fetched dream that I now know is possible to have in a relationship. And so, huge ups to Taylor, my ex-wife, for actually making that call. I'll never forget it. I come home from work one day and for breakfast and she was crying and I was like, whoa, we were never a bad relationship. It just, like I said, and so I still obviously cared about her a lot. And she said, I want you to take the kids, go for a walk for an hour because we're leaving. And I was just like, whoa.
You take the kids for a walk and say goodbye kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I pack up and
all right,
we're going to go.
Okay, right.
And so I was just like, wow. And, I didn't know what to do. And it was just it was difficult. Daughter just started school. She was 5. And, but looking back, it was just it was the best thing to do. And thank goodness she did it because I didn't have the courage. And that was really the kick in the ass that sort of took me from like, okay, there's this new way of farming. I'm getting my head around it with the organics thing. And I just started Quorum Sense, the discussion group, and was rapidly learning all this stuff. That moment, and then having to go, start my life again on my own was like the catalyst. It was like, this is it. And it was, and something about it was like, I want to show my kids that regardless of having no education, no qualifications, no money, you can do something that makes a difference. And it's funny because for the first year I had to still labour on farms. I was just helping out on farms when I decided I want to go and coach and support farmers. I just worked on farms, labouring, driving tractors, whatever I could get my hands on while I grew this sort of credibility in the space of supporting farmers as a coach or a consultant. I like the word coach. I don't like telling farmers what to do. And it was like, right, I'm gonna show the kids that I can do that. All my family were like, it was a bit like the old man when I said to him, I say the old man's my stepdad, spraying contractor. When I first said to him that I'm going to go manage this organic farm, he's like, oh, next minute you'll be wearing flex jandals and smoking cannabis. Little did he know I was smoking an ounce of the stuff a fortnight at that time just to try and sleep at night because I was so in my head I couldn't stop. That was my biggest thing, is I couldn't stop. And
what do you mean you couldn't stop? You were so G'd up with this whole thing. You were just
trying to get somewhere that wasn't where I was. I don't know, just this unhealthy drive.
Yeah.
But the point of that was when I went to go and then become a consultant, my whole family knew that I'm not like a business person. I've been bankrupt and I'm not educated. And they're like, when I said I want to go and start a business supporting farmers, first thing the old man said to me was, oh, you've got responsibilities. What, you think you're just going to go and do that? You've got kids to feed. And so he sort of thought that it was irresponsible of me to do that, to go out with no guaranteed income.
Risky.
Yeah. And for sure it was. But I did it anyway, and it's funny, isn't it? You look back on things that very could have easily stopped you in your tracks, but just a conscious choice, I get your concern and, I love him for it. He's just looking out for me and just didn't take his advice.
Well, you clearly had resolve just to get on and do it.
Yeah, I was just like, I was very clear that this was my life now.
And that was how many years ago? 5? 4?
Nearly 6.
6, yeah.
2018.
So what point did you start the coaching that you finished? You were still coaching when you were managing the organic farm?
No.
You said there was a finish up of the farm.
Yep. After 3 years there, I
and you were single then, like
single,
you were, on your
very much so, afraid of women, and thinking I was going to live the rest of my days alone and
a bachelor,
all that stuff. Yeah.
Did you learn to cook better? I know we mentioned it before. You would have learned pretty quick. or do you use down the pub or the
bit of that. There's a bit of that.
spoon?
But I know, like now, I've got no problems admitting like I'm a good cook, and Ruby and I very much share the cooking. There's no sort of,
hierarchy of.
Nah, she works harder than. If I look back over the last few years, it's funny because I was the one out working all the time and not being home, and then I'd have my ex-wife saying to me, "Oh, you're never home," and then I got into this relationship where I was actually home a lot, working in the office, and Ruby's out there working all day and night. It was like a role reversal, and I got to experience maybe a bit of what, minus the screaming young children, maybe what it was like for my ex-wife just being home and wondering what's going on out there. And
when's he coming home?
Yeah.
Now it's when is she coming home?
Yeah.
Is your cooking and your sharing of responsibility and so on, is that because of a newfound appreciation of food? Is that part of the organic farming, taking all that on, the curiosity, you're a sponge, you're absorbing a whole lot of stuff. The food thing was in there too somewhere, I guess.
I just discovered I like cooking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I discovered I like doing dishes, which,
that's a very good skill to have as a.
I started to enjoy doing my washing.
Yeah.
And being on top of all that stuff. Like, I ended up just realising that.
Did you make your bed in the morning?
100%. That started.
Yeah.
Like, that was the start of a lot of this.
You've seen that video.
Being responsible.
Captain or whatever he is, the Admiral.
Make your bed.
Yeah, make your bed.
Yeah.
Well, that's a Jordan Peterson thing too.
Yeah,
isn't it?
no, Jordan's been a big part of my learning journey. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
But no, I started to do a lot of self-development, and I went and did the Landmark Forum and all these different things. Did
you do that here? Did they run that over?
Yep, did that here. How
long ago was
in
that?
Christchurch in just after. It was funny because I'd heard people like Nicole Masters talk about it, and my old boss Tim used to talk about the Landmark Forum, and I'd be like, shit, what is this shit?
Tim, the organic farmer.
Yeah, the organic farmer.
Yeah, right.
And I was not interested in that. I knew everything. And when I saw Nicole for the first time in a workshop setting, at the end of the workshop, she's like, if you haven't done the Landmark Forum, go and do it. And I was like, that's that bloody course Tim was talking about.
Did she say that to you personally or to the crew?
She said it to the whole crew.
Oh, right. So you didn't go like, now, Jono, you really need to go.
No, she's like,
you're a bit fucked up. You need to go.
She said, you guys learn a lot this weekend.
Yeah.
It was a 2-day course. She said, the biggest difference between learning stuff and applying it is yourself.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it. She said the words, get yourself out of the way and go and do the Landmark Forum. And I went and did it. It was a 3-day course. It blew my mind. Realised how much of a victim I'd been being. Had to do a lot of cleaning up with family and friends.
You made the Sunday phone calls.
Oh yeah, I definitely made the phone calls. I was all for it. Funny how that all transformed. Next minute, I'm having conversations with my mum and dad that I'd never had before, and it was funny. There was a lot of, yeah, I know, son. Like, I'd be like, I've been avoiding you for 8 years, and judging you for not being there when I was a kid based on things that had nothing to do with me or you. Purely from other people like my grandparents and mother, and I remember my father saying to me, I know you have been, and I also knew you'd come back. I was just like, holy cow.
What a lovely thing that you had the courage to do it, and he, in this case, and maybe others, were kind of ready for that call. Not that they were sitting by the phone, but they were ready for something. And I was ready.
Like it, and especially with my ex-wife, like we really had a lot to clean up, and all of a sudden that was probably, it created the space. I got complete with who I'd been in the past. I was bitter, I was resentful, I was judgmental, I was arrogant. I was the macho, tough guy that if you and I weren't going to get on, I was going to deal with it in an unpleasant manner, which would always leave me feeling guilty. And that's where the working came in, because it just numbed me from all of that stuff. Had me be too busy to get in relationships with people that I would then have to or, not have to, but I would end up self-sabotaging because of beliefs about not being worthy of connection and being worthy of love and da-da-da-da-da. And I just got to deal with all of that. And all of a sudden I'm this, I don't know what you're describing now, but I'm definitely not that guy anymore.
Well, you've done a lot of work, yeah?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work. Yeah.
Did you do the Landmark Advanced?
Yep. No, I did. I did the whole curriculum for living.
Yep.
It was incredible. Obviously, you've heard of it. I never thought of asking you about it, but
yeah, that's where I met my wife.
no way.
Yeah,
Crazy.
about 20. Shit. 20. Hang on, working backwards. I better not get this wrong.
I got a similar response when I asked you how long you've been married for. Don't know.
I knew straight away. I was within milliseconds. No, it'd be 2004, because then, 2004 was like November, and a couple of people had said to me, "You need to go and do this course," and it was all, the RCS crew. Terry McCosker and all those guys. So that they're heavy on that, and it kept on coming up in conversations with other farmers and the group I was sort of, associating with. And then, someone else said, and to two other, it was three people within a month, all said it. And one of them was a sister of a good mate of mine, and then she said, "I'm going to do it." And I said, "Well, everyone's telling me I should do it. I might as well go and do it." So we did that together. Anyway, I walked into I won't give all the details, but Angelica was there. I walked in. I saw the back of her head, fell in love straight away. Said, "If that's the back of her head, my God, the front must be good." And
and it was the back of the head strictly, wasn't it?
No, she was sitting down, so I couldn't see anything else. I had blue jeans and an orange t-shirt. Anyway, interest ensued at that point, but all very platonic. It was really interesting, and as you I'm sure can appreciate, an interesting place to meet someone, and then totally exposed, stripped to bare, rebuilt the whole thing. Well, not really rebuilt, but just kind of let's get back to basics. Yeah, so you're not like meeting in a nightclub and then 2 months later they find out you're a real dickhead. Like she found out I was a dickhead straight away.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then 6 months we did the advance, and then we sort of got together 6 months after that. But powerful stuff.
It really is.
Really.
Yeah, I couldn't leave that out. It was a big part of it. Let me discover who I never knew I was.
And you've done other things. You mentioned, Jordan Peterson and what other courses or workshops or books of discovery or did you attend to help discover who you were?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Joe Dispenza and appreciated people like Zach Bush. And when we had the accident, my second 100K head on, just in 2020, when I...
Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so we were driving to Twizel and me and my daughter Harper and son Bo, and we were heading to Twizel to go boating with a mate of mine. It was 9 a.m, beautiful day, and come around this big sweeping bend outside the airport at Tekapo there with his Tekapo Air Safaris, and just watched this car just come hauling around this big sweeping bend and just missed the corner and come straight into our path and just went, there was no braking, no slowing down. We were doing 100. He was clocked 4 times earlier that morning doing in excess of 150 and just poof, head on. And it was crazy. So he died on impact, and me, my son and daughter were awake the whole time, and so it was very clear and vivid. My first sort of experience of like some kind of out-of-body thing where I was looking down on the crash scene before this feeling of being like back down to the body, woman's voice who was behind us in a car, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I hear it vividly, and I sort of come to back in my body and look back, see my son very pale, but his eyes are open, and my daughter was crying. So, I could see my daughter's arm had snapped, like it was like a Z in her humerus. That bone there is humerus, yeah, humerus, and humerus doesn't sound right. That sounds like something funny.
It's not funny at all.
It's not funny. But anyway, her arm.
Oh yeah, between
the shoulder and the elbow. That one there had snapped.
We'll get a doctor onto that.
Yeah, we will. We'll check up on that. And but she was quite responsive. But then my son was very pale. His neck, we didn't know, had broken, and all the ligaments had been torn from the base of his skull. And so we got him out, and like as soon as I got out of the vehicle and put weight on the ground, I knew that there was something in my back. But honestly, I thought it was muscular. I thought I'd just done some sort of muscular damage. And of course, no pain. I couldn't feel pain at this point. So I was up, got the kids out of the car. You know, there's oil and diesel running off down the road. I knew, like, just for the sake of fire, just that we had to get them out. So I got them out, went and sat on the side of the road, and just sort of maintained this sense of clarity. Like, that's where work, like, you know, Landmark Forum and just dealing with what's so, rather than the story and the drama. We just kept it to, right, here we are. Organised a rescue party. We had 2 choppers turn up. My daughter went in one, and me and my son went on the other. And we got to the hospital, and the whole time I'm talking to my son, he's on my chest, and we're talking. I'm saying, wow, you know, we're up in this chopper, and just kept on checking on him. And then got to the hospital, and Bo went, and they had to put him into an induced coma, swelling and bleeding on the brain. And he was only 4 at the time, and he was airlifted from Christchurch up to Starship. So we were separated, and me and Harper had to stay back in Christchurch. So the kid's mum went with Bo up to Auckland, and we had to stay behind in Christchurch. And at that point, I was told I needed to have surgery. I'd broken my back in 4 places. One of the breaks was like a complete shatter of a vertebrae, and there was bits of it in my spinal cord, and the spinal cord was like coming down and then around this broken vertebrae. And
you jumped out of the car and
carrying the kids, and I remember lying on the road, on the edge of the road, and it was like my back was like that, and I remember rolling left and right to check on the kids, and thinking about it and seeing the X-rays, like you think, how am I still walking and not have any nerve damage? But anyway, they put steel rods in my back, and that's where I say, like, there's definitely a place for modern medicine. Like, in those cases, man, I wouldn't be here without that. But broke my shoulder, broke 9 ribs, broke my foot in 2 places, and my back in 4. And so that's had that operation. That's when I just discovered Joe Dispenza. And you know, he'd done a similar thing, except he didn't get the operation, and he healed his back from his home with his mind. And I was like, this can't be true. And then when you're put in a situation where you're fully helpless, like, you know, you're really trusting the skills of the people around you. Sure, I could have said, no, I don't want that surgery, but I saw the X-ray. I was like, no, I'll take that surgery. Yeah. But after the surgery, it became a really strong priority of mine to manage my environment. I didn't take painkillers. I didn't take any painkillers. So that was after the experience I had being knocked out and then coming out of the surgery, and they gave me ketamine, and I left the planet. And when I came back, and I was like trying to vocalize but couldn't, it was quite horrific. Like, if I hadn't done, you know, mind-expanding recreational drugs as a young fella, I wouldn't have been okay with what happened to me, because I didn't know that I was actually on a drug. I just thought this was actually pretty out of it. But anyway, I came back, said, don't give me that ever again, whatever that was. I said, it's ketamine. And anyway, from then I said, look, I'm not taking these you know, painkillers. And nurses would come in and say, because they come in regularly, you need to have this, you need to have this. They'd have the things ready. I remember seeing on a little cup of pills, it still had Bayer written on it, and I spent my life spraying Bayer chemicals. Never thought of Bayer as a pharmaceutical provider, but here they are. I can't escape them. and they thought I was mad. Like they said like, this is no place for like being proud, you know,
tough
being
guy.
the tough guy. I'm like, no, this is literally nothing to do with that. I can assure you, this is me being able to tune into my body and to be able to understand what I should and shouldn't be doing based on what my body's telling me. And after 3 days, I was walking.
Wow.
And climbing stairs and started to get my strength back. And it was tough being down there because Bo went into a coma, and when they had to fit a halo to him, which is 4 bolts on the head at the front, 4 bolts on the head at the back, and it's a steel frame that holds your head rigid. And when he came out, his eyes were fully inverted. Something had happened with the anesthesia, and his eyes come out fully inverted, and he was battling infections. And it was on, like it was
Serious?
Oh yeah. It was like, you know, he was unresponsive, and having like understood the power and impact of fear on the body's, function, quite literally. What there was for me to do was to be responsible for not only my environment, but that of my children's, especially my sons. So we had family members that were going in, and I could hear them in the background, you know, oh my God, you know, and like not taking away from that. That's a valid emotion. Yeah. But I had to say, look, don't do that around him.
Don't bring it in here.
Take that and do that somewhere else. And that was tough. And not everyone could see why. Probably a lot of people thought I was just being a prick. But you know what, I like between me and his mum and his mum's husband, their stepfather, Reuben, we managed that environment, and those kids, mate, you want to see them now, you would not, and like me, like you would not think that we had that happen just 2 years ago. And that was like, holy cow, you know, we have, and our landscapes have the ability to heal, but we're not taught that, and we don't even know the extent of that power. We're just tapping into it. And so I guess that sort of leaves me in a place of wonder and curiosity around, well, what is possible? If we can do that with our minds, and, you know, I got the operation for the spine thing, and I was actually in New Zealand, no one's ever had that in for such a short time. It's because I said I wanted it out.
What was it? What was in the rods? Yeah.
Right. So I had them in for not quite 10 months, and no one's ever had them out that early. And my surgeon, he was there alongside me the whole way. All the nurses thought I was mad, but he actually was like, no, if you like trust what you're feeling, and he backed me up. It was That's so great. Cool. And then when I said I wanted those rods out, I started to think about like, what happens if I have another accident? I got these rods in me. Started to think about, you know, like, I spent a week in hospital without putting my feet on the ground, and I reckon it impacted me in such a negative way. When I could walk, I snuck outside, walked across a 4-lane road, thinking, mate, if I go down here, I don't know if I'm going to get back up again, just to get over that street and put my feet on Hagley Park on the ground. And I felt this, and that's when I started to understand, like, there's more to the energy around us and what we think, and that grounding is really important, and that I didn't want to have metal in my body. I just didn't want to have metal in my body. And so I asked him to take it out, and they had me sign a waiver, but he fully trusted me, and got that out. And mate, that was pretty full on, waking up the next morning like, okay, I don't know if I can stand, but I'm going to stand. And I stood, and the surgeon was like nearly in tears. He was so rapt, and he said he's never seen anything like it.
And in that 10 months, what had you been doing to heal? Like you were doing Joe Dispenza type stuff. Like what was your sort of health regime in that time?
Definitely managing the mindset. Definitely like visualizing, like Joe talks about, visualizing the healing, almost looking at my future healed. But also I started doing yoga and gentle movement, and I did Qigong, and you know, the stuff that I would have thought was just hippie bloody weirdo stuff, I was finding was really helpful. And it's funny because I had a case manager, and for ACC here in New Zealand, which is like accident compensation, it's I don't know what you guys have over there, but it's who looks after accidents and healing, and they have a return to work program. I was involved with physio and going in and doing all these exercises, and we got to this point where it was a very clear understanding that this woman who was doing my recovery plan knew that I had it all under control and was so blown away with the results that I was seeing through my own healing journey that she left me to it. And when I said I'm ready to go back to work, there was no doubt about that, and I was able to do so. There's still a few things to this day, like I smashed a lot of back teeth in the process, so that was like
in the crash.
Yeah, in the crash. So you can't describe an impact like that. It's the craziest.
You're going 100, he's going 150.
Yep.
That's a big thing.
And it was stop. It was no.
No veered off this or sort of deflection or anything.
It was bounce. It was just woof. It was crazy. Yeah. And I was 2.8 ton, and I don't know what a Hyundai Santa Fe weighs, but that's what he was driving, and there was...
That's a fairly small car compared to...
Yeah, so you can see, like, just the basics of inertia and energy is, he would have...
And construction. Like safety-wise.
Yeah, definitely. But it was funny, because the old Safari, or the old Patrol, had a 1 safety rating, and his car had a 5 safety rating, so it makes you wonder what the safety rating is all about.
Yeah, what's that based on?
I think mass goes a long way as well.
Gee whiz.
But that was another powerful thing, was like the not having resentment. Like, I don't know what that guy was dealing with. I don't know what resentment. If you want to be unwell, judge people and be resentful, because it will make you unwell. And so I actually ended up being in communication with this guy's family, and like, not only, like, they were ringing me up saying they were so sorry, and I'm like, you guys have lost a loved one. Like, there's nothing you need to be sorry about. I said, I'm clear that guy didn't wake up one morning saying, I'm going to go out and hit Jono Frew. I didn't even know the guy. And I made sure they all were complete with any feelings of guilt around it, because I said, it's not for you to feel guilt. I said, I'm blown away that I'm still alive. There's no need for your guilt. There's no need for I don't do sympathy. Like, there's no place for it here. We're alive. We're grateful for that.
And and your kids too.
And my kids, like, they were alive. We had Harper's 7th birthday in hospital. I'll never forget it. And his family rallied together, passed the hat around, and gave us $20,000 for the healing journey.
Wow. And they're on their own grief journey.
Oh, 100%.
Have you been in touch with them since?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, and the people that were at the crash scene as well. Like, there's almost this little team of people that we touch base with regularly. Just, yeah, like a
support network.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How are you now?
Oh, I mean, my back, like, I can feel it for sure. And it's
you get a twinge?
Oh, shit, yeah. Yeah, it's like a...
Holy shit. That's quite a gouge.
It's a good gouge, yeah. But no, I honestly,
it's
like...
glacial. That's that big.
Yeah. Yeah, no, look, honestly, man, like, I'm so grateful. I ended up putting on more weight than I've ever had, and I'm really excited about getting back on the ground out there shifting cows all day, because I feel like that's been the missing element, is actually giving it a good test run, my body. You know, like, I've still done the motorbike thing, and only recently sold my dirt bike, and like, I've done things I probably shouldn't have with my injuries, but like, I'm not a victim to what's happened. I can still, to give you an example, I was going to the gym I thought I'd try this gym thing out, mainly because I was resigned.
This thing called gym.
God, I so resisted it. And I still resisted it because they bloody signed me into a 12-month contract, and I got sick of it after 3 months, and it wasn't working travelling all this time to a place to do these exercises that I felt was so not a representation of actually reality. Like it was a new concept for me, just lifting weights.
Repetition.
But I was deadlifting 100 kgs and I was deadlifting 130 kgs, and then one day deadlifted 140 and just about needed to be wheelchaired out. I did something where, it was 140 and it was second rep. So I did 100 as a warm-up and then did 140 and got halfway up and, I thought, I'm going to need an ambulance.
I need some more rods.
That was pretty scary, but just again more gentle movement, and breathing's such a big part of it. Like breath,
Do you do breath work? Like is breathing a thing that's
100%.
part of your day?
Yeah. I'm a Wim Hofer from way back,
mm-hmm.
And I love
where do you
cold
go?
water up at Highland
the lake
Station there, because I'm mad over cold water.
It was great. I just started doing. I did a bit of a Wim Hof training a couple of years ago, and then just didn't have the bar. Did access to cold and getting a big tub and ice and that sort of stuff. It was all too hard. And then you'd lose your mojo. And then we did a meditation retreat a couple of weeks ago at Braidwood. Pretty fucking cold at Braidwood. 2 weeks ago. Anyway, they've got a lake there, and ducked in there every morning. It was almost part of the program. 7 o'clock it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, this is awesome.
Was it ice or not quite?
Not quite. It was frosty, but it was. I don't know how cold it was. It was the bloody mist off the dam, and it was spanner water. Tightens your nuts. That's how.
You go a kind of shade of beetroot afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you do that, but my body does that. Just
it's just that response. I think it's fantastic. So I've been dipping in the pool at home, which is, I don't know, it wouldn't be as cold as that lake, or certainly down here. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think it's and the more you read, the more I see and do it. It's like there's so many. It's irrefutable scientifically now. The just the stuff that studies are done on Mr. Hoff and others. It's just like it seems to be one of those. The next big thing to do, in the toolbox of health. And I like the fact, and Nico Plowman, who ran this thing, he's got this phrase, he says, surrender the preference. Like the preference might be stay in bed and keep warm and have your cup of tea and then have your shower and then, you're ready for the day. Yeah, surrender the preference. Go on and fucking have a dunk in the freezing water. Just do it. And then have you ever regretted going for a dunk in the freezing water?
No.
Not once. It's like, I don't want to go for a run. Bloody thing, it's cold or whatever. I've never come back from that run and gone, I wish I didn't do that.
You should almost just wonder, like anything that you resist, you should just go straight for it.
It's like, if I'm resisting, I need to do it.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
This world of comfort that we all got used to and convenience, it's not helping anyone, trust me.
I saw the title on a book the other day. It was called The Comfort Crisis.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And we're all like, I have been in that space for some time, especially around not being physically active. Like I've been, consultancy and more time at a computer than I, ever thought I would. And so now is like I'm 100 almost 100 kilos. Crikey, dick, it's hard to admit that. But I could sit here and say, my all the excuses, injuries, it's my job, blah blah blah. It's like no, I'm pulling this shit towards me now. This is time to demonstrate, because you're only here once. Like I don't want to get to the point where I'm like, brittle and can't physically do what I can do now, and say, I could have done better or I could have done more. Like I've also, I've kind of done this transition from being hard and now being softer, but I'm also like, I've read David Goggins, like I'm also clear that actually, a bit of hard yak is definitely nothing to be shy of.
Well, it's those challenges surrendering the preference, take on the challenge, strengthen the muscles, whether they be mental or physical or spiritual or whatever, and you're always going to be better for it.
Oh, yeah. Have you read The Surrender Experiment?
No.
Great book.
Better write that down. Put in our show notes. It came up on a Joe Rogan little video the other day, and also because it's not an uncommon kind of a phrase or kind of a thing, is I read, it must have been yesterday, it said, something about in 20 years' time, you're going to wish you were here right now with those problems you've got, with the physical capacity you have, with the age you are, and the problems you've got. So yeah, you in 20 years' time, you're gonna, and it's a bit like that thing. Your problems are someone else's dream.
Oh. Sometimes I need to remind myself of that.
The Surrender Experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book. Yeah, it was part of. Yeah.
So what? So since the accident to this point.
Yep.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, so just going around.
Apart from lifting heavy weights, you shouldn't.
Doing dumb shit like that. Just empowering farmers. That's what I get out of bed for. It's giving farmers the ability to be responsible for their lives and their operations, which most people aren't taught at university. Like, you get told there's a prescription, you get a degree to say that you're competent with that prescription, you go and do it. And people don't know there's another way. So I literally just decided for the last 5 years, and particularly after the accident, was like, I'm not mucking around here anymore. Like, it's like right at the beginning, concerns of like, I'm not good enough for this. Who am I to think I know what farmers could be doing? All this,
judgy self-talk.
Chatter, yeah. And then just, it's like, nah, and you also start to discover like, that one thing that the crash did was it actually got me present to the work that I had done. Like, I had, people messaging me, thank you so much for everything that you've done for us. And I had people sending books and juices and thank you cards. And it was just like real humbling, and it really cemented actually what I have been doing has made a difference. And now's the time to out the ante. So I took on a staff member who I even cringe saying the word staff member. Team member, Graham Anderson. She's been with me for just over a year now. Took on Jake Kieran, who was started off as a client and then decided, he's like, man, I love this so much. I want to do what you're doing. And so we started doing that. And so I've got this incredible team of 3 with Natural Performance just going around the country. We've got Jake and I, who are like the practical, with very much the doughy, and then Greer's like the academic. She's been and done her honours year and in regenerative agriculture and in biology and ecology. So she's got the right letters in front of the name and can bring that academic aspect, and me and Jake bring this real practical element from our experience on farms, and it really works. And so we'll just keep doing this coaching consultancy thing. It's really just getting started. I've been doing it for 5-6 years, and now I've got baby number 3 on the way in September. Ruby and I getting married in December.
Awesome.
She's a huge fan, by the way. She's one of your.
Oh really? Oh, fantastic! Oh really?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh wow!
You're a huge part of her learning journey.
Really?
Well,
That's
it's
awesome.
like people often say, "Oh, she'll learn a lot off you." It's like I think it matters where it comes from, and I think in the world of like a relationship, you'd rather hear it from someone else than your partner. You know what I mean? So,
and that's often the case in any topic that someone's trying to learn, and in a lot of scenarios, whether it's even within a team or marriage or whatever. It's like you kind of need that verified third hand at arm's length kind of stuff, because it's just the way. And there's also, other reasons,
Yeah, pride not having anything to do with that at all. This is not ego. But no, it's yeah. So this is the big challenge now. Is this place here, raising a family in a way that aligns with our values, finding our groove together as a couple, as farmers, and as soon to be parents, for her, and this working on, now that we're closer to the kids, Harper and Bo, doing this 50-50 split parenting thing whilst, you know, doing the consultancy thing, the farming thing, and just gonna stretch myself and just see what I can do.
Well, you've been on your ass. You're sitting on your ass for the last 3
That's
years,
right.
buddy.
I've got to
buddy,
catch
you
up.
got to catch up. But we were saying earlier that when we're having a bit of a drive around, that I didn't use the word, but I don't think I did. It was like, this is the gift you've now been given, hasn't it? You know, and it pulls together kids, family. You know, like your children, Ruby and her life and her and your baby to be born, expecting, and your love of farming, and with a pretty decent farm partner, business partner, in a place that's not unfamiliar. You're saying these hills pretty well, and the spots to stop, and all that sort of stuff. So it's like it's a real gift, isn't it?
Oh, I see my whole life as a gift. I just took it for granted for 28 years. And some people spend their lives taking it for granted. I'm just glad I was confronted with what I was when I was, because it just presents me to it. I didn't know what a gift my life is, and I didn't know the opportunity that it is. I didn't know that I could do what I've done, let alone what could be done. So 100% it's a gift. And it's like, we talked before about parenting and children and, mixing families up. It's definitely not easy. And maybe you said there's no recipe or instruction manual for that. No, there isn't. And I'm reminded of a saying that Tim Chamberlain, who really got to thank a lot for that, man, used to say to me, and I used to not understand it. I just thought it was just this thing Tim said. He used to say, we'd always have these moments of silence. I used to be real uncomfortable with these silence. I used to try and fill it with something. And he'd often just sit and pause and he'd say, we're all just trying to fucking work it out. And I'm just like, now I listen to that, I'm like, we just so are. We're just trying to work it out. I kind of like it.
And do our best. I heard something this morning, and it was saying that, it says, if all we can do every morning is wake up and say, today I'm going to do my best.
Mm.
And don't beat yourself up if it's not what you would call your best day.
Mm.
Or you drop the ball or whatever. It's like, if you can say that every morning, your day will be different.
Oh, 100%. It's like, it's not on my, not me. It's here. Like little things, wake up.
Have you got like a list of maxims or mantras?
So I just like here on my home screen, present, powerful, and in communication.
Yeah.
So like I know every day if I'm present and I'm being powerful and I'm in communication, that's a big thing that we, withhold communication and we don't communicate concerns and all that stuff. Like it just builds up like muck that you drag around with you. So it's like I find it much easier just to communicate everything all the time as it happens, and it just frees me up. It lets me, and it opens up opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be there. But I wouldn't be here without being in communication. So that's just a huge thing for me. Is I've got the gift of being able to express myself through many different forms, and music's a new one for me that I'm really excited about.
I saw a couple of guitars upstairs, or wherever they were.
A few guitars, yeah, might be an unhealthy obsession. But just expression, man. Like if you can just show up as yourself every day, fully with authenticity and integrity, mate. Not only will doors open, friggin' doors will appear where there's no doors. You know what I mean? Like unexpected things. Like you and I sitting here right now.
It's awesome.
Look at this. I told you the sun would come out.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. We can
see the sea
nearly see the sea there now. It's fantastic. Some cattle roaming. Are they yours? No, they're not yours, are they?
Yep,
They are yours. Yeah, down there.
Proper sunflowers and kale and
it's fantastic.
all sorts of things out there.
Just conscious of the time, mate, because my chip's telling me I've got 5 minutes left. I do want to finish on, because I've got a bit of an agenda, which I'll talk to you about offline. But what do you think your strength is? In a professional sense, you know.
Oh yeah.
What area of stuff?
Like
is soil your favourite thing? Is people your favourite thing? Is
people
grass or pasture or
like the whole lot fascinates me, but it all comes back down to who we are and the way we carry ourselves. Like the soil, if we weren't here, would look after itself. Like there's no doubts about it. There's no concern for me about the planet. The planet's going to be fine. It's whether we're going to be around or not. So for me, it's about dealing with the shit that we're all carrying around subconsciously so that we can then tend to the soil like we should be tending to ourselves. Like I didn't realise all my life I've been poisoning the soil and poisoning myself. There's no difference. How we treat ourselves is kind of how we treat our environment. So it's very much as like to put it, like we'll come back to the actual answer here of the question is I'd say my strength would be actually just my listening.
Awesome. Well, mate, we might wrap it up. I was going to do a Q&A, but I'm out of memory, and I reckon we'll catch up on the Zoomy thing anyway, on the virtual thing, so we'll do it then.
Yep.
That's been awesome. I trust that is going to be very, very interesting listening to our listeners and viewers, now that we got the bloody thing sorted out again. I've so enjoyed that chat. Thank you for being so transparent. I knew that it would be a very transparent, honest and courageous discussion, and it's been lovely sitting here in our makeshift desk. It's
at least tidied up a bit.
No, it's not held up to tidy up, mate.
No, it's
not. This is one of the most resourceful setups I've ever had here. Tabletop on the old thing there. Lovely view. The day has cleared up. I've got to get myself down the road, as do you, so we might wrap it up there. And anyone who wants to know more about Jono, and I've got some websites we're gonna put in the show notes as well, references to some books and so on. And also, Natural Performance, is it naturalperformance.com?
Naturalperformance.co.nz.
Yep, cool. So check that out. For those who want to know, I'll do a Q&A with Jono another time, but that will be available to our Patreon members. Anyone who wants to join Patreon, go to charliearnott.com.au. You get for $10 a month a monthly webinar with one of our previous guests. You'll get some videos and extra stuff from me, transcripts of the episodes, plus a Q&A of one of our guests every week, I think, especially in the off-season too. It keeps people entertained in the off-season. Right, mate, let's wrap it up.
Awesome.
Mate, so good. Fantastic. And next week on the Regenerative Journey, I interview Jade Miles down there in Victoria, Stanley, beautiful part of the world. Lots of apples on their farm and all over the place, all around that region. And it's she and her husband Charlie do some amazing things down there. On their farm called Black Barn Farm. There is a barn there. It is black. In that barn, lots of cool things happen. Workshops, training sessions. They grow apples. They make all sorts of cool stuff with them, and all sorts of other sort of homesteading type stuff. It's fantastic. Really enjoyed my sit down with Jade in her house and chatted away there. But you have that to look forward to next week. Jade Miles on the Regenerative Journey.
This podcast is produced by Rhys Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.